Hey, this is Mr. Bossy. Thanks for tuning in, live from my basement. And I'm here with my friend James. Say hi to James. To talk a little bit about separation of powers. And I'm going to start off with a quote from my friend James about separation of powers. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. If you remember what tyranny means, that means the abuse of power that usually results in the violation of people's rights. So, this quote of tyranny, it's not just one individual, it could be a large group of individuals, like a whole branch of government. So, how do we create a system of government that's not going to allow that to happen, or at least make it very difficult for that to happen? We have that system, and that's called separation of powers. The Constitution itself distributes the legislative, executive, and judicial powers of the national government among three distinct or separate and independent branches. And again, this system is built into the Constitution. We, the people, gave our consent, or we give our consent through voting, through voicing our opinion to government, contacting our lawmakers. We give that consent to live under this system that enables the limitation of government power. And Article 1 of the Constitution establishes our first branch of government, which is the legislative branch. To legislate means to make or enact laws. So this is the branch of government that makes laws. It consists of the Congress, which is a bicameral legislature consisting of a House of Representatives made up of 435 members based upon population of the states, and then the Senate, which has 100 members. So every state has 2 senators. Bicameral simply means having 2 houses. So we have the House, we have the Senate. It's bicameral. Think bicycle. The legislative branch makes laws of the nation, approves the annual budget, annual meaning yearly, confirms or approves presidential appointments for various positions, raises revenue or money through taxes and other levies, regulates interstate and foreign trade, and finally, it's Congress that has the power to actually declare war. Article 2. Article 2 establishes the executive branch. And once again, our vocab here, to execute, means to carry out or enforce. In this terms, law, actions of the government. The executive branch is headed by the President of the United States, who is the chief executive officer of the nation. The executive branch executes the law of the land, or laws created by the legislative branch, Congress, prepares the annual budget for congressional action, appoints cabinet officers, ambassadors, and federal judges, and administers the federal bureaucracy. What in the world does that mean? A bureaucracy is an organization of non-elected, so they're hired, individuals, officials of a government or organization who implement the rules, laws, and functions of their institution. So in the case of the federal bureaucracy of our government, it's all of the regulatory groups, the agencies, the bureaus who actually help to carry out the laws and execute the laws passed by Congress. You can think of the FBI, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Center for Disease Control. There's a lot of them. Finally, we have our third branch of government that's established in Article 3 of the Constitution, and that is the judicial branch. More vocab. Judge means the authority to hear evidence and legal arguments in order to pass judgment on an individual, or in the case of constitutional law, to pass judgment on whether laws are constitutional or not. Our judicial branch consists of the federal courts, including the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the land. The U.S. Supreme Court exercises the power of judicial review. Judicial review means that the power of the court to determine the constitutionality of laws. And finally, the federal courts try cases involving federal law and questions involving interpretation of the Constitution of the United States. That's it. Separation of powers. 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. In our next presentation, we'll be looking at something called checks and balances. This happens to be all the different nuanced powers that each branch has over another, and all the different things that each branch does, so that one branch doesn't become too powerful. So we have this idea that separation of power limits the power of government, so there's not one group that has all of the powers. Now we need to figure out how the government itself, the 3 branches, can control themselves within the system. And that's what we'll have with checks and balances. So, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, ask me in class, shoot me an email, rjbossi@fcps.edu, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Take care.